All right. So excited. Thank you for joining us. Very excited about our new podcast, The Stamp of Approval. I'm very excited about my guest today, who is also my brother. So, how fun is that? I'm Kristen Stampini, co founder of the Stampini Platinum Real Estate Group with REMAX here in Boca Raton, Florida. I'm also a certified real estate coach for Craig Proctor. And you may have also heard me on the radio locally. I am the owner of Global Virtual Real Estate Assistance. I'm also a real estate investor, a national speaker, and trainer, also an author, and certified inside sales agent, trainer, and coach. So that's what I do here. And what this podcast is really for educating other realtors on my knowledge and experience that I've had throughout the years of real estate and being a trainer and a coach and everything else. So it's sharing to all of you these wonderful people I've met along the way. And with my brother, he's actually out in California, is Matt Anderson. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him. I really look up to my little brother, Matt. I know, and he's actually quite a bit younger than I am, but I do look up to him for what he's done in the short years of his millennial life. Okay, he's a former senior social strategist for billion-dollar brands such as Dr. Pepper, one of the biggest telecom networks in the U.S., Metro PCS, owned by T-Mobile, CPG soft drinks, a soft drink giant. He also has helped strategize marketing budgets on social media for companies that ran up to 40,000 per day. You got it. Can you believe it? 40,000 per day he would spend, and about 50% of that budget was on Facebook alone. So he's going to talk to us about where Facebook is and where it's going. He also performs social media, for Ram Trucks, Tony and Guy, Papa John's, and over 20 other businesses. So you can see why I actually look up to him. So currently, Matt is now a talent manager at Bottle Rocket Management, where he manages brand sponsorships and campaigns for over 25 YouTube creators whose followings, can you get this? Followings total nearly 100 million plus subscribers worldwide. And today, Matt's going to be discussing advertising landscape on social media, how to best position any company on social media, no matter if you're big or small. Obviously, real estate or non-real estate, it doesn't really matter. And what the next 3 to 5 years will look like for brands on social media and how to stay ahead of the curve. So, hey, Matt, how are you?
Wow, what an intro.
I know. Well, you've known me for several years now, right? So, but
I don't think I could copy that at all as an intro. That was fascinating.
Oh, well, you are fascinating to me. Okay. Even though you're my little brother by many, many years, you really fascinate me and all of your education. I mean, he went to USC and, and has just done really well amongst his short years of life. And so anyways, I want you to start, if it's okay, Matt, because you have so much background and experience in social media. I wish I had 1/100th of what you know, but if you can just talk to us about where is social media today and what you foresee in the future and what should we be doing, big companies, small companies?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we have to think about social media first as the advertising medium it is. I mean, for starters, I don't think we've ever seen an advertising medium in the history of advertising that is more complex or ever changing than social media. I mean, if you look at any of the previous mammoths of advertising mediums, look at TV, radio, print, and how commercials on each of those mediums has evolved over the past 50 years, it's actually pretty stagnant. I mean, commercials are still about 30 seconds on TV and 30 seconds on radio, with the only thing changing being, FCC regulations on what can and cannot be shown. Print is pretty much the same thing. And then across the board for each of those, if you look at, how they've evolved in just the past 5 or 10 years, they're actually all declining significantly because social media is capturing those budgets. Working on the brands I worked for, each year, I would see more and more of the percentage leaving TV, leaving radio, and going into social media. And so social media is a completely different animal. I mean, when I first started out at a social media agency in 2011, just 7 years ago, Instagram was only 6 months old.
Wow.
Snapchat didn't even exist. And Facebook still had large reach for brands and companies on newsfeed, which you don't even see nowadays. And the government had not placed any rules on social media. It was literally the wild, wild west. I mean, even for Fortune 500 companies that I managed back then, I would just go to Google and grab random pictures and post them on brand pages, hawking whatever it was. There were no laws or FTC regulations that stated brands couldn't. So you could post literally pictures of the president, the Pope, whoever you wanted, and no one could legally say anything otherwise. Today, it's a completely different story. I mean, the FTC has started regulating social media posts heavily for brands. Facebook has now acquired Instagram, which back then it was only 6 months old. Now it's the second most popular social media platform after Facebook. Snapchat has come into the fold and is a rave with Gen Z right now. And Twitter is now the go-to platform for live events. With influencer marketing, which didn't even exist before, pretty much an industry of its own. 7 or 8 years ago, the goal of big companies was simple on social media. They would just have a social media page, post once or twice a day, and then try to, quote unquote, stay relevant with the millennials. Well, now, as millennials have grown into the strongest purchasing power demo online, if a company doesn't have social media, they're probably not doing anything right, and they're probably not a company that's thriving in the market right now. Brands can't just post once a day on their social channels like they used to be able to. And, on Facebook, they've made it nearly impossible for brands to, get any organic reach. Facebook is now a pay-to-play platform, which a lot of people don't realize. The only way to get your voice across on Facebook, if you have a business page or a company page, is with advertising. The average user, get this, only spends 1.3 seconds per post when scrolling.
Wow.
Just think about your own, scrolling habits when you're on Facebook or Instagram or anything that you're just, you keep scrolling with your thumb or your finger, 1.3 seconds. So that's how much time a brand or a company or a realtor has to capture someone when they're scrolling with their ad. So it's really something that you have to be able to capture someone within a blink of an eye, or you just wasted your budget. And, in the last probably past 3 years, I've managed social accounts for, brands like you spoke about before with Dr. Pepper and with Metro PCS owned by T-Mobile. And I could probably count the amount of organic posts we put on their Facebook pages on one hand. I mean, I'm not saying brands don't do it. Yes, if you go to those pages, I'm sure there's a few organic posts. And if you look at Coke or Nike, they probably have a few posts up. But you can instantly tell which ones have pay behind them and which ones do not, because even with 10 to 20 million fans, if they put up an organic post, it maybe has 5,000 impressions or 10,000 impressions. Facebook is forcing brands to pay money to be on their site. And so I guess the question would be, for your listeners and, for realtors that are tuning in, how do you compete with companies that are spending $50,000 a day, $100,000 a day?
Thinking that.
Facebook.
And also, how do we catch them that quick? If you said, they're scrolling in one, I mean, how, as a realtor, and we're not, we're learning how to be marketers depending on, because we need to be marketers, but what do we do?
Yeah, well, one of the things that Facebook has now in their marketplace, as well as Instagram, since Facebook owns it, are their targeted ads. That's now Facebook's advertising, bread and butter. And, isn't it amazing how, you can go on Google or Amazon and search for a new pair of socks, and the next time you hop on Facebook, that exact pair shows up. And, it's not a magical, sock fairy following you. That's Facebook's custom audiences. They are, syncing with these websites and letting these websites tell Facebook, hey, someone just searched for socks on our website. Can we put up an ad on your page, for that exact thing? And Facebook's like, sure. So, it's actually brands connecting with Facebook, telling their ad platform what you search for on their site, and then Facebook allowing them to place ads for things you already searched for. Now, real estate may be a little different, and as people may not be searching your website for certain listings or houses in their areas, so you can't necessarily retarget someone who visited your page, but you can definitely use Facebook's targeting capabilities in the same fashion. So you can put up, you could put up a simple ad targeted at, for instance, Los Angeles, California, and probably get 10 to 20,000 impressions since you're making it so vague just to get more eyes on your page. But honestly, I would try to target as much as possible. It will cost a little more in the long run, but you're going to get people that are way more in tune with what you're trying to sell. You can target exactly what you're looking for. I could say, I want someone who lives in Los Angeles, California, is 25 to 45 years old, with a household income of 120,000 plus, with a college education, and then I could even narrow it down to 10 specific zip codes and whatever my target objective is. So for real estate, most likely lead generation, but you can really do a whole variety of target objectives.
So let me ask you a couple questions there, because
Yeah.
that's really good. So, for example, in real estate, a lot of us will only spend per ad $5 a day, because that's really, so it's only $150 a month, right? And maybe we'll get a lead or something like that. What are the and impressions? You're talking about impressions. So what are impressions, and why are they important? And what do we need to do? Is it pictures? Is it the target market? I mean, what are we doing to try to get somebody to leave their information for us to capture that as a lead for us?
No, exactly. No, that's a great question. I mean, it really, so to answer your first question, impressions, when someone says impressions or even reach on social media, pretty much how many eyes are seeing it. So you can almost say views in a way. So if something has 10,000 impressions, that means 10,000 people saw it at any point. Now, the tricky thing is with social, Facebook will count it if even a third of the ad was on the page. So if someone maybe stopped scrolling when only, a third of your ad was seen at the bottom of the page, it still counts. So that's why when you get those full views, you really have to count on, your content looping them in. So, one thing that I've always said and believed in is content is king. Content is king. That's something, I've, always said in my career for the past 7 years, something that someone I used to look up to when I first started out would always tell me, but that's something I always recommend people who are trying to get into social repeat to themselves. Content is king. So, and, people ask me all the time, well, how do I get more followers? Or if I post 10 times a day on, Instagram, why don't I have more than 100 followers? My first question always back is, what type of content are you posting? If your content is engaging and interesting, your followers will build themselves. I personally, working for, representing Dr. Pepper, Metro PCS, or Tony and Guy, I never cared about followers. I learned quickly that is not the number that you really want to look at. What you want to look at is engagement. I'd rather have a page with 25,000 followers and 10% engagement than a page with twice as many followers, 50,000, but only 3% engagement. So when you start creating your content and creating these advertisements on social, you really need to think about, okay, what type of content am I putting up there? Is it something that is going to engage with people, something that's going to be interesting? And if your content is really good, people will follow you. People will share your content with their friends. The cheapest, people are always like, what's the cheapest kind of marketing on social media? I only have a little bit of money, so what's the cheapest? Honestly, the cheapest kind of marketing is word of mouth. And I know that really doesn't sound interesting or enticing, but if you're producing great content, you won't have to spend a dime because people will be sharing your content on their channels. And people always say too, well, Matt, how do I produce good content? Like, do I need to hire Steven Spielberg to film a 30-second Instagram video? No, because Steven Spielberg doesn't know what your fans like. Only you do. Once again, if you provide value to your users, they'll want more. If you create, for instance, a series of 3 Instagram posts that show me your latest listings, I'm probably going to keep scrolling. I'm going to be honest. But if you create a series of 3 Instagram posts that focus on, say, simple kitchen remodels like stainless steel appliances or colorful backsplashes and a rolling island, and tell me if I spend $5K today, it'll increase my home's value by $15K tomorrow, I'm probably going to follow your page and hope that you give me more tips and tricks like that. And then 4 or 5 posts down the line, if you post a listing, I'm not going to be upset and I'm not going to be annoyed because you've already given me value in the past. So I know if I take a moment to read your ad, I'll probably get more value in the future. I always believe in the 80-20 rule. And you can adjust this however you want for your businesses. I recommend no less than a 70-30 rule. But the rule to me for 80-20 that I always tell people is 80% of the time, provide content that's interesting, that's engaging, that's fun, that's creative, that's inspiring. And then 20% of the time, because you gave them 80% of stuff they want, you can do your hard sell. You can show some of your listings. You can show something you really want to sell because people won't be annoyed. I follow some, realtors who all they post every day is listings, and I just scroll past or I unfollow because I don't want to see that. Now, if you're giving me stuff that I care about, I don't mind that every now and then because you've given me stuff that provides value for my life, and I know you're not just trying to sell me.
No, and I think, in the content, right, has to be new content, right? So you don't want to be sharing,
Correct.
right?
Correct. You always want to do new content. I mean, unless, it's something that went viral in the past and you want to just, reshare. I mean, that's fine. But you really want to be sharing fresh and new stuff, not just, the same stories that people have heard for years. So you want to try to find new tips and tricks, new valuable information that you can provide people. If even if it's just, following up with the current news in your industry and just sharing that information, that's more valuable than just sharing the same old, information that you've always had. So no matter your industry, as long as you're getting new information, new ideas out to the followers and people seeing your content, the higher chance you have of people being interested because they know every day you'll be bringing them new stuff and not just random things that they don't care about.
Okay. So let me ask you, for our listeners out there who, most of them will probably be realtors, but we'll definitely have some consumers and some other people that do marketing and things like that. Number one is, what can you tell us that we should be doing today? How much can we spend, and what do you think our return on investment may be? And then number two is, where do you, and this is just on Facebook, and where do you foresee Facebook going?
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny, that question, every brand I've ever worked on, that's the main thing the client always has asked me is, what's my ROI at the end of the day? Like Dr. Pepper says, well, how many, here's what you always have to think about is, so how many social posts have to go up for me to realize, I'm going to sell 1 million cans of Dr. Pepper? Or how many videos need to go up on Metro PCS's page before we get 20,000 new, network subscribers? ROI on social is a completely different beast than most forms of marketing because you really have to think about all the value you're getting out of it. If you spend, say, $100 on Facebook and you get maybe, 500 new followers, well, they're going to be seeing your content every day. In every other advertising medium, once you spend $100,000 on a TV commercial or, $5,000 on a radio ad, once it's out there for 30 seconds, that content's never being seen again or never being heard again. On Facebook, if you grab one person in as a follower, you will have them until they either get so annoyed with you that they unfollow or until they purchase something from you. So, when you talk about ROI, especially with, YouTube, for instance, paying for a YouTube subscriber or something like that, I mean, you're paying for someone, if you pay for an influencer, for example, to talk about your product for a minute, well, that's someone, one, that people care about and, they see as experts. Two, they trust them to, talk about products that are valuable or quality products. And three, they're going to be talking about it for, 1 to 2 minutes, sometimes even 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the influencer. Whereas, most other forms of advertising, you're looking at 10 seconds and people are tuning out or muting the TV or going to get a drink. When people are watching YouTube videos or looking at social media, they are focused on that and that only. So when people talk about ROI, it's really an interesting question because, I can't say if you go spend $1,000 on Facebook ads, you're going to get, 3 houses sold. I mean, it's just ROI is so finicky in social because you never know what you're getting out of it. But I would say your ROI on social, especially in the next 3 to 5 years compared to other advertising mediums, will pay off greater because you're building audiences that are going to see your content every single day. And even though you're spending maybe, say you spend $500 on Instagram and you're only getting 100, followers a day in return, well, you're still, growing an audience over time. And over time, you'll, the organic reach, the organic amount of views you're going to get in the future for money you spent in the past is going to be far greater than any other advertising medium you could spend money on.
Yeah.
In the future, you were talking about the future of Facebook. That's a very interesting question because, Facebook, here's the funny thing. If any of the listeners right now go to your go to your kid who's maybe 12 or 13, or go to your niece or nephew and say, hey, what do you think about Facebook? Their first response will be, oh, that's for old people. Like my generation, I remember in 2004 when I first got a Facebook page, it was all the rave in college. But now it's seen to Gen Z as like, that's what old people are on. We don't want to be there. They're all about Snapchat.
So you guys are all
where's
leaving us?
I know. Millennials are still there, but even millennials are starting to go away and, deactivate their Facebook pages and go more towards Instagram or go more towards YouTube or Snapchat. And so people ask, what's the future of Facebook? It's going to be a crazy next, 3 to 5 years for Facebook. Facebook, they've had some problems recently in the news with politics, so they're kind of rebrand themselves. They're trying to get less of that content on Facebook and more about family and friends. But the good thing about Facebook, they own Instagram. They own WhatsApp, the largest messaging app in the world. They own all these things, and, they're even, I don't know if I should be saying this, but they're about to get into the hardware industry as well. So they have a lot of stuff in the near future that's going to, be really interesting for their company overall. But the Facebook social platform itself, it might not be as big as people think, and it might not be where you're going to get, for realtors, 5 or 10 years from now, or 15, when, millennials are still going to be buying houses, but then Gen Z is going to start buying houses. They're not going to be on Facebook. So your advertising budget alone is going to be shifting, even how now it's shifting from TV, radio, and print to social media. You're going to see in the near future a lot of the advertising budgets on Facebook and Twitter are going to be slowly shifting more towards Instagram, towards YouTube, and then especially influencer marketing, which is now what I'm in. And in my opinion, that is not only, very popular right now, but is going to be more so the future, in my opinion, of, where social media is heading in terms of advertising dollars.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. You know what? And what I want to do, because I'm bringing you back, yay, for our next episode that is going to be really focused on YouTube and Instagram, and influence marketing, like you just said, which you have now so much experience with that you've moved to. So just our listeners here that are talking about Facebook, if they're doing, and then we're going to, and when I bring you back, we're going to talk about the rest, but what should they do on Facebook to get the people to get out there, to get the impressions and everything else? What did you do? Were picture, obviously content, as you talked about, and everything else, and the 80-20 rule, okay, and I agree with that too. Make sure that you're giving value in content, and then if you're putting a little bit of other things out there, people don't get annoyed, and they'll watch you, and they'll follow you, and they'll share your content, right? And it needs to be new content. And what about pictures? Because I've seen different things that you've done in marketing, and you've done a lot of bling and pictures and things that really attractive, right? So so what do you recommend there?
So in regards to content and like pictures versus videos, that's the crazy thing too, is social media used to be, everybody had a blog. If you look at the early to mid 2000s, blogs were the rave. Everybody had a blog. Everybody was reading blogs. Blogs were driving millions of impressions of traffic to their site, and people put their ads all over blogs. Now, honestly, I can maybe name one blog that I might read, but now everybody wants video. Everybody is about video. Video, people want to watch the internet. They don't want to read the internet. That's something to remember. People do not want to read the internet. There's the same reason why in people's lives, people watch a lot more TV a day than they read books. It's the same thing on the internet. People want to see videos more than they want to, read. So I would recommend, not only, I definitely recommend trying to get the lead generation with, posts that, hit your industry, be it realtors or whatever, and try to get lead generation in terms of, just straight listings or, email lead generation, but also try to think of content you can create video-wise where you could use that as content, on Facebook as an ad or as just regular content, but also you can start building a library of content on YouTube. So then, you can host it on your website. You can, share it on any of your social platforms. You can use that as your actual ads on any social platform. So I'm not saying, once again, go out and hire Steven Spielberg to do a $20,000 ad. Even if it's just you sitting at a desk and, make sure, you definitely want it to be quality. Make sure you have good lighting, but make sure it's short. Don't go into a 45 minutes to an hour-long video. No one wants to watch that. When people are looking at YouTube videos online, your attention spans for videos, I told you earlier, scrolling on Facebook, 1.3 seconds is how much time people spend. So if they see a video, they might spend 30 to 60 seconds on it. So you really want to try to capture someone quickly, but have quality content that's valuable that people want to use.
Wow, that's great advice, Matt. And when you were talking about that people want to watch video and they don't want, the other thing I'm watching that people are doing, like I just had a friend that asked everybody on Facebook, "Hey, what's your routine in the morning, right, to get people interactive or whatever?" And do you know how many people, which I thought was really interesting because, just starting a podcast is like 5 out of the 15 that had commented said that they watch podcasts every single day. So that's the other thing that they're doing, right? So anyways, awesome information. So Matt, if the listener today was, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, if listeners today want to reach out to me, they can reach out to me on, feel free to reach me on any social platform, on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. My handle is DallasMan04. And yes, I've had that since high school. That's why my username is so crazy. But and also because Matt Anderson is the most common name you can find. So DallasMan04. And feel free to reach out on any of my social handles, and I'm more than happy to respond to any questions people might have.
Oh my gosh, Matt, this has been so informational today. Thank you so much. In our next episode, guys, we're going to really dig into YouTube and Instagram and where they're at today and where they're headed. So thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay.